Hello, everyone. So, in my efforts to essentially bombard everybody with posts on social media, just so that we stay connected and that we stay in calm and peace as much as possible, so that we stay in perspectives, that we stay out of grocery stores and pharmacies trying to buy all the toilet paper. So that we accomplish all of these things, I wanted to share something with you, something that I have been reading over the past couple of weeks. Actually, I finished reading it a couple of weeks ago in its entirety. As some of you may know, later in the year, in October, I'm going to be doing a show at the Rialto Theatre in Montreal. And I've titled that show Storyteller because, well, come to the show and you'll find out why. But nonetheless, part of the show is going to be about nostalgia. I want to talk about nostalgia and the past. And one of the things that is going to be integrated into that show is elements of this, which is essentially, I don't know if you can see it, I don't know if it will come across, but this is the autobiography that my grandmother's mother wrote. So my great-grandmother, my maternal great-grandmother, these are the 100 pages that she wrote about her life, closer towards the end of her life. And it is a fascinating tale of moving overseas for a better life at the turn of the 20th century and coming from Manchester in England to Montreal, and suffering, lots of suffering. Lots of decisions born out of necessity. There was no luxury, not at least in my family, and poverty, disease, diphtheria, tuberculosis, like real threats. And this was just the norm. War. These were times of war. There was also a massive flu epidemic that was sweeping the nation. So it's a hard story to read, but the fact that when I finished it a couple of weeks ago, and then all of a sudden the past week or two, the events here have unfolded the way they've unfolded, the irony of that is not lost on me, and it just reinforces what I already know, which is that nothing happens for nothing, that everything is happening exactly as it is meant to, whether that be on the collective level or on the individual level, like within my awareness. But I wanted to read you something, because I was thinking about it earlier today, about in this moment that we're going through right now, I want to look at what we have going for us as opposed to what is threatening us. So I want to read you just a couple of pages from this. The background, let me give you the background. Sorry, false start. The background to this is that my great-grandmother lived in what is now St. Henry and what was then referred to as Notre Dame Street. Her father lived in the area that I live in, which is the Plateau Mile End area. And she didn't see her father a lot because of the distance. So, this is from the autobiography. When I went to see my father over the weekend, he was as usual alone and lying upstairs in bed, as he was not feeling well, and at this time could not work. My father looked so pleased when he saw me. I could see while looking at him that he looked so thin and neglected, and at the same time so remote and withdrawn. I knew and felt that the balance of his life was shattered, as he was so uncared for and forlorn. My father looked as if he were lost in his own private world of thoughts, as he was so far away, perhaps thinking of his childhood and everything that he had had to endure. I felt as if he were trapped in some sort of bondage with no possible way of coming through. I sat in sorrow and silence, looking at him. His life had been like a stormy sea, and he was so defeated. Before leaving, he tried to assure me that he would soon be well again, which I doubted. When I went to see my father the following week, I brought with me a large bag of groceries, with a package of meat, as he looked so thin, which worried me, as I did not know what he was existing on. My father felt embarrassed when he saw the bag and refused to accept anything, as he was so sensitive and proud. Before leaving, I left some bills on the table which he did not see. His welfare was not of any consequence, as his wife and children were most of the time away, which he endured and finally had become reconciled to as time went on. A few days later, I was informed that my father had passed away. I was both shocked and heartbroken. When I came in, my father was lying in bed with a cloth covering him, with this kind, neighborly woman sitting beside him. This woman that was guarding my father told me that he kept calling for me before dying. When I heard this, tears fell not only from my eyes, but from my heart. The thought kept haunting me, knowing that I was not near my father at such a time when he kept calling me. My father had finally found the solution to all his unsolved problems only in death, that went together with all his dreams and hopes, as he was up against something blind and without the power of reason. The crimes and sins for which there should be little forgiveness, such as cruelty, selfishness, and hard-heartedness. All these are little weapons that are used to shorten the life of another human being. Only by being considerate and understanding can we serve to deepen life, when we cannot lengthen it, as my father never did wrong for the sake of some immediate advantage, nor trifle with what is right for the sake of gaining power. I looked at him and knew that he had found peace at last, and that his merits and weaknesses were both alike, and were now left in the hands of God, that were simple without deceit. So, this is just a glimpse into my great-grandmother's life, and obviously it is not a walk in the park. Difficulty, suffering. And when I read this, I realized that the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree, even if that tree goes back a few generations. The reason why I'm bringing this to you now is because my grandmother lived on one side of a city. Her father lived on the other side of the city. And in realistic terms, if you're going to walk it, you're looking at an hour, maybe a 2-hour walk. But they didn't see each other. And when moments were tough and my great-great-grandfather's life was coming to an end, his daughter had no way of knowing. There was no communication. You had to go see someone in person. We may all find ourselves in self-isolation right now, social distancing, whatever you want to call it, whatever the hashtag is. But the fact of the matter is, we can be closer to each other right now under these circumstances than we normally are when we are out and about and have the ability to just mingle and intermingle with each other freely. So don't forget that you have a network. Don't forget that we are all out here. Don't forget that maybe you can pick up a phone and speak to somebody. I have friends who, if you text them, they will answer immediately. And if you phone them, for love or money, they will not answer. And I know maybe I'm just getting old. Maybe this is a sign that I'm just getting into my, real midlife moment, and I am looking at a generation of people who don't want to speak on the phone because maybe that's too confrontational or too personal, or I don't know, I don't care. Fact of the matter is, I prefer a phone call. I prefer hearing your voice. I prefer you hearing my voice, which is why I'm doing this and not just writing another post. This is an opportunity for us to connect. We have the luxury of technology. We have the luxury of the innovations that have come into our sphere of being over the last couple of decades. And seen through a spiritual lens, that advancement, that the speed with which all of those things happened, if you look in the grand scheme of history, they all happened very, very quickly. I believe that one of the spiritual reasons for that happening was that we can now do this and connect with each other in a way that my great-grandmother could never have even understood if you would have explained it to her. So, I hope that this has reached you, and I hope that I am reaching you all. Tomorrow and Wednesday, we have the Yoga Nidra meditation classes via Skype. If you're interested in those, let me know. It's just another way to connect and a way to calm the nervous system. So that's it. In the meantime, be well, be smart, be healthy, be Netflix. And I am not endorsed by Netflix. I'm not paid by them. I'm just saying it because, that's what I'm going to do the second I finish this video.